Hello and welcome to another Adventure Habits with me, David Overton, and Splash Maps. And today it's a nautical theme. Yes, it's actually Cows Week this week. And as a special treat, and because I met him again at the Armchair Adventure Festival just last weekend, I'm absolutely thrilled to have Ken Fowler here. Ken, say hi to everybody here.
Good morning, everybody.
Great. And Ken, I think you've done one of the most extraordinary things. That you describe yourself as an amateur adventurer and an amateur sailor. But I think, given those credentials, you've done extraordinary things. So I think that's what makes you a brilliant example to bring you onto Adventure Habits. Why don't you just, in a nutshell, tell the listeners what you've done?
I guess I kind of almost kind of start where it all started. I am literally an ordinary person, an ordinary bloke. I'm not a full-time adventurer. I think when I was very young, a friend joined me at school, Liam, and he was really into outdoor walking. He took me up hills. We went climbing waterfalls, of course, with no ropes or anything sensible like that. And it really kind of was, I think it's probably my first little opening into kind of what an amazing world there is out there. Kind of adventure after adventure kind of followed that when I was younger, and then sadly when I was 24 my father died of cancer. That was kind of quite a big thing for me, and I really kind of wanted to commemorate his life and do some fundraising, so we basically decided to sail a very small dinghy. You can probably see it there behind me. It's, give you an idea, it's about twice as big as your bathtub, generally just about as wet as your bathtub as well. And we sailed it around the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight is close to where I live. I see it every day, and kind of that was my inspiration because it was literally there in front of me. It wasn't something, people go to Cows Week this week and they race around the island. My boat is so small it's actually banned from entering any of those races because they think it's unsafe. So I went
Which
round
is
the
why
island.
we're so grateful to have you here.
Totally, it is, yeah. And it's really lovely to kind of share a slightly different sailing story rather than big boats.
Yeah.
So we sailed around the island. We raised about £4,500 for charity, which was fantastic. And just, yeah, it was a really kind of great adventure.
And that sparked something a bit bigger that came further down the line. I mean, is it the same boat that I've seen that you brought to the Armchair Adventure Festival a couple of years ago?
So the boat you've seen at the Armchair Adventure is the one behind me. So that's kind of been around the Isle of Wight. It's now also sailed from Land's End to John O'Groats, and it's also been around every single island in England and Wales.
I've seen that boat actually dwarfed by an oversized Labrador while we were there. It's not a big thing. I mean, you're on top of that. I guess the good thing is you're on top of everything. You can
You
reach
are, yeah. You're perched in a very small space. Generally, there's as much water on the boat as around the boat. And physicality-wise, you literally often have half your body hanging out of it to keep it upright. But the lovely thing about it is you're literally inches above the water, and it just gives you such a tactile, incredible feel of what the water's like, every wave, how it changes, whirlpools. I kind of feel like it's a really beautiful way to be in just amazing physical contact with the sea. And the sea is an incredible thing. Every day is different. Every location is different. It's not like walking through the same landscape every day. It's just really magical place, actually.
Yeah, it's so much dynamism there, and so you got your taste by going round the Isle of Wight. So that was your first island number one. How many islands did you go round at the end of your challenge?
Frighteningly more than I thought there were going to be at the start of the challenge. It's like anything. It was a challenge nobody had ever done. Nobody ever sailed around all the islands in England and Wales. So the first job was actually to find out how many there were. I kind of guessed, having done a bit of Wikipedia, about 150. It turned out there were 262, which was a lot more than I envisaged. But it's taken me to all parts of the country. We've been right up to Northumberland, an amazing coastline. We've seen incredible wildlife up there, from hundreds of puffins floating around your dinghy to seals launching from the beach to come and look at what's this person in this very small dinghy doing. All the way around Wales, Cornwall, the big long muddy beaches of Essex, and out to the Scillies, which are an incredible place. It's 30 miles out into the Atlantic, and you go out there and a different world. In fact, when I was out there, I actually bumped into, almost literally, Wally the walrus, who happened to be out in the Isles of Scilly there. And to give you an idea, when you said about my boat and a Labrador, my boat weighs about the same as a Labrador dog, so about 34-ish kilos. Wally the walrus weighed 750 kilograms.
Aha.
Kind of dwarfed my boat. I was always very, very glad when he was floating around on the platform and kind of not lurking in the seas behind me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you must have seen a lot of things that kind of scaled quite large
Yeah,
as you were going round.
massively. And I think as well, it really showed me that like you don't have to travel to the far sides of the world to have an adventure. Like our
Sure.
coastline is absolutely stunning. The wildlife, I've seen millions of jellyfish from the size of barrels. I've seen like dolphins come next to me, and we have so much that is here. And although the country in itself is heavily populated, a lot of people. The moment you get
Yeah,
onto the coastline or the sea,
yeah.
it's a really beautiful place with very
Um,
few people.
I remember I think there was a statistic. It's a little while since I've been working at the Ordnance Survey, but when I did work there, there was a statistic that the surveyors always like to troll out, which is like you don't think this is don't think this is an easy job. That it might be 1,000 and a bit between Land's End and John O'Groats, but there's like 40 to 50,000 miles of coastline to cover it. It's not like doing that thing that we do with the circumference is 3.14 times
Yeah, yeah.
the diameter. It's kind of no, it doesn't work that way with Great Britain. There's a lot of in and out. And in your challenge, I recall that it's not just the uh, things, the Shetland Islands and things like that. The Orkney Islands and the Channel Islands, things like that. But you also did the islands that are inside the lakes, the inland islands as well.
Yeah, so I think for me, again, I think everybody gets different inspirations for their adventures from different places. For me, as a youngster, kind of listening to swallows and Amazons was incredible. And I loved the adventure of it. And they've taken different islands from different lakes and turned it into the story, but nearly all of those islands actually exist. So to be able to sail
Mm.
around the Lake District and go around all these beautiful islands and kind of living almost that story that you'd heard as a young person was just really, really magical. And I think, I
Uh,
think everybody finds inspiration for their adventures from different places. To me, it's often,
yeah.
I look at a hill and I kind of go, I wonder what the view's like up there. And I then have to go up that hill. And it doesn't have to be something massive, but I've had so many magical memories from those things that I've taken on. And that what makes life really, really fulfilling, I think, just
And
little
maybe
adventures.
there's something with that. Yeah, the connection of childhood, inspirations.
Yeah.
Combined with what you find yourself capable of, which I bet you never knew you were capable of, even when you started the challenge.
No, absolutely. I didn't start sailing till I was about 44. I used to live in Nottingham, which is about as far away from the sea as you could get. And even as a small
Mm.
child, I used to go to Skegness once a year for a week's holiday. And I kind of couldn't understand why one day there was a beach and one day there wasn't a beach. I have no idea about tides or anything like that. And then sometimes now I do have to pinch myself that, I've achieved what I've achieved,
You're a man of the
and been to
sea. It's
places I've been.
qualified. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I mean, one thing that I'm really intrigued by, because on this pod we have a lot more solo adventurers than group adventurers. And I wonder if, Ken, you can give us your thoughts on, what are the pros and cons of going off and doing it by yourself?
So that's a really good question. I think that probably the two pictures either side of me kind of sum up the kind of two halves of my adventure. There's a picture of me there solo in the boat, and that's kind of where I'm spending most of my day, kind of 8, 9 hours, long days. And the English coastline is so quiet out there on the water, I could spend 8 hours and not see anybody or hear anybody. That's kind of quite tough. It's tough mentally. I do all my journeys for raising money for cancer research in our local hospice because my dad dying of cancer. And on that boat, I have two pictures: one of my father when he joined the Navy, and one of my wonderful mother-in-law. And in the peace and solitude and no distractions, you look at those photos a lot, and it brings back lots of memories. And to be honest, I've probably cried in that boat more times than I have in the rest of my life,
Yeah.
because you have time to contemplate things. And you're also at the mercy of the sea. I've had some seriously scary days, a couple of days when I probably should have died, but I somehow managed to come out of it. So that's the solo bit, and it's your own drive that makes it happen. The other picture on the other side, that was wonderful helpers. I've had many people. That's Ian and Jane who helped me get from Land's End to John O'Groats. I've had Paul, Earl, Carl, my son Charles. They come and support me, and the best thing about a shared adventure is talking about it at the end of the day. When you come at the end of a day drained from the physicality and the emotional roller coaster you've been out, they're there to lift you, to bring you up, which is magical, to help you. And although to a degree I'm a solo adventure, I could never achieved anything I've achieved without these wonderful people. And I feel really blessed. I also feel guilty that they've done all of this for me, and I often ask them, are you okay with this? And they go, it's the best thing to do. And I think I'd say that to all adventurers, like, don't be scared to ask for help, because you're giving somebody else an adventure in their own thing, and that's a magical thing. So there's pros and cons. It's also good to have a sounding board. At the end of the day, I'll talk to them and what the plan is for the next day, and they were generally good at reining me in when I'd want to go sailing, when I probably shouldn't be going sailing. So yeah, magical, two different bits. You need your own drive, but a team around you it just makes it so more magical.
I so love that. The idea that your solo your solo adventures actually engages and brings people in to the adventure. So you're getting all those benefits of doing it all for yourself, plus the scary bits. But you're actually, bringing these people along with you, and by not being afraid to ask for help,
Yeah, I think,
you're
yeah.
actually helping them.
Yeah, and it is, and it was something I would never have guessed, David. When I felt really guilty, these people said, "No, we want to help you. We get why you're doing it. It's for charity, so we'll do it." But afterwards, I said, "Are you sure you really enjoy it?" I thought they'd just be nice, and said, "No." And for them, it's opened their eyes to travel. They've just travelled so much more since that adventure, and I
Yeah.
do feel, really fortunate that one of the gifts I have, the magical gift of having the adventure and those memories, but these people who've helped me have got the magical memories as well, and that's really wonderful, really, really
Yeah.
wonderful.
And that's what we keep seeing on this podcast as well. People are being inspired by meeting people who are actually going out and doing it. It just shows everything's possible. But Ken, you've had it seems highly relevant, but at the same time, it's a great worry for you at the moment. You've had a diagnosis which, given your father, I guess it was probably not a massive surprise to you, but at the same time, quite difficult. How are you finding that life is for you? What's it driving you towards now that you know that you are harboring a cancer?
So I think you're right. I've kind of, ever since my dad died when I was 24, I've kind of, he was one of six siblings, and sadly five of them all died of cancer. So I kind of, it's a strong thing in my family, and the plus of knowing that in the background forever has actually just motivated me to live life, to go out and do things, and to try and pay back and help by raising money for cancer research and Oak Haven Hospice. I've kind of, in the back of my mind, not dwelt on it, but always kind of thought, cancer will probably come and find me sometime in life. I feel very fortunate in the fact that I've been diagnosed with prostate cancer, but I was diagnosed with no symptoms, I was very fortunate with just an ordinary
Right.
test. And I would say to any guys out there, if you are over 50 and you've not had a PSA test, even if you have no symptoms, please go out and get tested. I know from all my fundraising, if they can find the disease early, the outcome is really, really positive. And incredibly now, it's more prevalent than breast cancer. So it's the most common cancer found in the
Right.
UK now. So, and guys aren't always the best about talking about stuff like that. So, my
No,
message
I'm
would be,
so pleased that you brought it out here,
yeah,
because a lot of our listenership is not least of all me,
yeah.
bang in that zone. Yeah.
So for me, it's kind of is, people always ask you when you do an adventure, what's your next adventure? What's your next adventure? And kind of my adventure at the moment is facing this. It's dealing with it. I'm very lucky to have a very supportive wife and family. But telling your children it is really tough, because it is hereditary. And I have two boys, and it's kind of going through that kind of thing. So, adventures sometimes are physical, sometimes they're mental, sometimes they're health issues like this, and and I think you just have to try and approach it as positive as you can, and use the friends and people and family around you because they really help you deal with these issues.
And while we're on that subject, there was you were raising money for cancer research, so we'll put a link for that on there. If you've got a money raising page, then we'll put that on there, or just straight to the charity. But there's also a hospice that you were raising for as well, which I've raised money for in a run at some point through the New Forest, actually
Yeah.
somewhere near there. Which one was that?
Oak Haven Hospice in Lymington. I kind of,
Okay.
ideally, all of us would like cancer to be cured and cancer research do some amazing things. And I've been very fortunate through my fundraising to go to their research centres and see the incredible difference they're making. But for those people that can't be cured, hospice care is wonderful. My father spent 3 days in a hospice at the end of his life, and they were truly wonderful. And I've been to Oak Haven in Lymington, and my wife's nursed there a bit, and they're just incredible places that do incredible things for people in just kind of the toughest places. So yeah, really good causes, and certainly my adventures, they've been the best motivators to keep me going, because there's been plenty of times where it would have been so easy to just give up because what you're facing is so tough on that adventure.
Great, and yeah, so thanks to Oak Haven, and and for Oak Haven for giving people the chance to do not just huge challenges like yours, but for running around the New Forest and doing half marathons and marathons and so forth on softer earth, which is the only kind of surface I'll run on these days. So that's great news. So Ken, your time here is perfectly timed. Not only is it Cows Week, but August is the time where we update our data. So if you order a sea chart, here's a towel. I think I've actually managed to get the one of the Isle of Wight in there. There we are. That's one side of the island. That's both sides of the island. So brand new data. If you order your sea charts now, you'll get the brand new data when it gets delivered at the beginning of September. So think on that, all of you sailing types, paddle boarders, kayakers, and those that have got the bigger boats and go round cows. You should go and sort yourself out now. Well, look, Ken, I think you've established yourself very well as an adventurer that we should be taking some advice from here. And I know that everybody listening to this will agree. So we ask all our visitors for 5 adventure habits. And I'm just wondering what your first habit would be.
Right, I think my first habit would be definitely motivation. I think, when you do take on an adventure, find a good motivation, because every adventure is going to have good bits and lots of tough bits. And to get through those tough bits, you really, really need a strong motivation. Without it, it is very easy to give up. For me, it's always been raising money for cancer research in Oak Haven Hospice. And there are definitely times when I've been out on that small dinghy, 30 miles offshore, I can't see anybody. And it's very easy to be frightened, to be scared, to want to give up. And I look at the 2 pictures of my father and my mother-in-law, and I look at the cancer research logo on my boat, and I know that people facing cancer are facing a far, far tougher world than I am, and that really keeps you going. So I would say, if you are going to go out and do something, find the right motivation, and if you can, raise money for any form of charity, whatever charity is strong to you. Everybody has their own kind of personal stories, then do it, because that really pushes you. So yeah, definitely find the right motivation for your adventure.
That's great. I think with you that the story is the purpose of the story is so strong. It's you can see it driving. I mean, you call yourself an ordinary man, but I'd say you've done extraordinary things. So I can see how that would be your first thing. Do you have any thought as to how you find that purpose? I mean, I can't describe the position that you were in as fortunate, right? But it gave you the purpose. you saw your father going through it. Obviously, mother-in-law went through the same thing. You're actually going through the process now yourself, and there's a lot of it in the family. So it's kind of obvious to you. Is there any advice you'd give to someone to look for it within their soul somehow and find this motivation?
You know, it's a really good question. I kind of think if something you have a really strong feeling for within yourself, then that's a motivation. And it
Mm.
really is. It's sort of one of those things, I'll take it or leave it. But if it's something that you really care about, something you think about, or it's just something you see, if for me, if every time I see a hill, I want to go up that hill, that is my
Yeah.
motivation. I think it's those things that engage your brain and make you feel alive, then that's a motivation. I'd say don't do things because other people have done them, and don't do things because you think people think you should do them. Do them because you have that strong feeling, because then you are more likely to succeed. And to be honest, the memories and the experiences that you get from it that shape you will be so much stronger, and you will come out a better person at the end of it, despite the
Yeah.
good bits and the bad bits.
That's fantastic advice. Listen up, people. You're hearing it from the main man here. Ken, that's just adventure habit number one. What would be your second adventure habit?
Well, considering I go out in a very small dinghy a long way out to sea, the second habit has to be risk. It's funny, every adventure has risk in it. You can never completely remove risk, but what you can do is minimize it. And for me, certainly out on the water, you are out there in a very potentially dangerous world. It's multiple times more difficult than doing adventures on land. Um, so, you know, my day job, was an air traffic controller. You know, so I dealt with risk and safety all the way through my life, and it's one of those skills that I didn't realise how transferable that would be until I started serious adventuring.
Mm.
And I was used to making literally life-saving decisions at work. But this time, my life-saving decisions are more focused on me, and it was really, really important to come up with a way to manage your risk. And to me, one of the big things you can do is be prepared before you start out. The second thing is I used to make myself a list of priorities, in reverse order. So when I was sailing from Land's End to John O'Groats, literally my third most important thing was to sail from Land's End to John O'Groats, even though that's what I was trying to do. My second one was to fundraise, because to be honest, I'd never ever wanted to sail from Land's End to John O'Groats, but because it was so engaging, especially in such a small dinghy, it really caught people's attention. And my number one priority, have you any idea what that might be, David?
To get back in one piece.
You got it, to come back alive. It's absolutely frightening. And when you put it up on a screen or in front of your own eyes, it really focuses you. And, you know, I kind of think, you know, an adventure is about going out and experience things, but it's about coming back, because if you come back, you can do lots more adventures. And
Yeah.
certainly on the sea, you know, you have a responsibility. If you endanger yourself, you're also endangering the RNLI, whoever has to come out and get you. So it was
Yeah.
always about managing that risk. And there are times where you have to kind of make tough decisions. So when I was going from Land's End to John O'Groats, I'd had some awful weather. I'd been landlocked for a couple of days, and this massive storm had come through. And there's a really notorious headland in Wales that you just, even big boats don't like going around it, never mind in a storm. And I had to make the tough decision to put my boat on the back of the camper van and tow it 20 miles along the coast. So to some people that would be, well, that means you failed, Ken, from going from Land's End to John O'Groats. But by making that tough safety decision, it meant that I could then sail on for another 18 days up the coastline, raise
Yeah.
thousands of pounds extra, and have amazing adventures. And sometimes you have to think about the big picture, not about the obsession of the adventure
Yeah.
you're on. And an adventure isn't successful because you completed it exactly how you meant to be. To me, an adventure is successful if you start it.
Yeah, yeah, and so pragmatic choices, I guess, as you go along. You shouldn't be shy of those. So the risk management, is that so? Is there a regimented way of going through that? It is, did you have like a risk management chart, and you kind of, that you had a procedure, or whatever? Or was it just being aware of the risks?
So I think one, it's being aware. I think two, being aware of the consequences if it goes wrong. which is a big thing. People don't always think, oh, what will happen if things go wrong? How will I deal with that? So you have to think about that. And again, it's just kind of looking at all the things that will impact on you. Your equipment, is that all good? The weather, what's that like? All the little bits that if any one of those is wrong, your risk has just gone right up. So it's just applying common sense. You don't necessarily need to sit there with a complete risk assessment form. Some people might, and that might work for them, but for me, it was all thinking about all the bits that go into that world that make me vulnerable. Because if I'm vulnerable, sadly, the consequences are I might not come back at the end of that day. And a couple of times, through unforeseen circumstances and poor weather reports, I nearly didn't. So I know
Right.
what it's like.
I mean, it's such a contrast to. I picked up Geraldine McFowle's book from Walking from Home to Rome, where she walks from Glasgow down to Rome. Now, by daytime, she is a risk manager. That's her job. She's a contracting risk manager. But she said she didn't do any of that stuff
Yeah, yeah.
for her adventure. For her, it was kind of like suck it and see, which is an approach to risk management that I don't think you subscribe to. It's,
No, no,
um,
definitely not.
yeah, she definitely, reading the book, it's really quite funny how many things that she discovered along the way. And you actually think, yeah, she really didn't plan for that, did she? I mean, it's a great. We're hoping to have Geraldine on this show quite soon as well, because there's a lot of people interested in those long distance walks. Um, it's interesting to see the different approaches to risk, as here we are, two solo adventurers with two very different approaches, despite both having big risk management backgrounds. So there we are, guys. It's horses for courses in this game, I guess, Ken.
It is, and I
Um,
think when you are on the water, it's just a very different environment. It is. We are not designed to be on the water. We're designed to be land-dwelling people. And
yeah,
when you are out there, and everything happens, my success or failure is determined by the weather, and
yeah,
that's why it's really important. But again, like you say, horses for courses. If you go into things without preparation, you have consequences of that, but you also have positives in the fact that if it's a safer environment, you meet people, you have incredible things, so you don't have to overplan, but certainly if you
yeah.
know there's a significant risk, you really need to prepare.
Yeah, I think on the water, the extra hazards require the extra preparation.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so dealing with risk is number two, and what about number three?
Number three, kind of a little bit linked to it, is kind of preparation. I kind of I used to teach people at the College of Air Traffic Control to become air traffic controllers, and when I went down there, I had to learn some new skills. And they always said, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. And it's kind of stuck with me for a really long time. And when you've got an adventure, I think you tend to focus on really getting excited about that thing that's going to happen. But actually, the build up to it is part of the adventure. And the preparation and the planning and everything you do. It's almost like taking your adventure that normally would be a week long, and you extend it to an 8-week adventure because of all the build up to it. You learn amazing things about the places, which mean when you go there, you know about them and you learn so much more from it. You don't sail past it and go, I don't know anything about that island. You go, wow, that's an island where this guy got imprisoned for 10 years, and it brings it to life. And if you're better prepared, it also keeps you safer. For sailing all the way up the UK coastline, we had about 250 plus landing sites. So it meant if anything went wrong on any day, I knew where I could dive into. And some of those landing sites I could land and get out of. Some of them were just a beach to land on where I could at least be on dry land, but I would never get out of there until the weather improves. And that preparation, like I say, it means your enjoyment of the whole adventure is bigger, and it just means you're more likely to stay safe. So, for me, preparation, it's a lot easier to do preparation on land in your nice little office like this than it is to be frantically trying to do something when you're hanging out of a boat in a force 5 storm.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different scale of challenge when it's out on the sea like that.
Definitely.
Okay, so prepare, yeah, fail to prepare, and you're prepared to fail. Basically,
Yeah.
is the take home message there. Okay, so habit four.
4. We kind of touched on it a bit, but it definitely is kind of involve others. I am a solo adventurer, but every time I generally do an adventure, I have people with me who are on the shore. You know, it's tricky for them to be out on the water with me. Um, but other people bring so much to you. When I've been planning loads of these ventures, you know, like I said, I didn't start sailing till I was 44. It was a late to life thing, and I went to lots of experienced sailors, people who've done other adventures, and I chatted to them and learned from their experiences because, like anybody who's done an adventure, will have done some things good and they'll have done some things bad. And those bad things are the things you want to be armed with before you go on your adventure because it means you do more good things and you make less mistakes. So, you know, it's really good. Take other people's knowledge and inspiration. And they link you to other people. People I find in the whole adventure world are just really positive. Because they adventure, they're enthused that you want to do it. So they want to give and help. And it's much like I was saying about Ian and Jane on the journey and my other friends, you know, they all got things from my adventure, which I felt really lucky for. And if anybody approaches me for help and support, you know, I can't wait to help them. So, you know, involve others. And again, share your adventure. You know, some people share it live while you're going along at that moment. Um,
Mm.
Myself, I've been really fortunate since I finished my adventures. I do lots of talks to people, and through those talks, one, they've been brilliant for fundraising, but two, I've met that many incredible people who've got their own amazing stories. And I come home from having given a talk, which is lovely to bring back your memories, but I'm just like, wow, I met this person today who's done this and done that. So, you know, share your things with other people because you get so much more from it and people get
Yeah.
so much more from you. So, yeah, don't be solo where you can include people in whatever way you would do it.
Yeah, that's why I love the Armchair Adventure Festival so much. I think it's just that you're in an environment where that just happens when you bump into people. You know, whoever you bump into there, they're on an adventure or they're seeking an adventure. There's something that they want to talk about, and I love having our little stand there with all the maps because then, well, like you know, people come up and look at a map or a chart and they start reliving it and and perhaps planning the next thing as well. So it's yeah. It's always something that I love doing. So that seems to be a deep message in this from you, Ken. That you know, it might be a solo adventure, but bring people along, and I guess that's in spirit and in their actions as well. You can always
Definitely.
help an adventurer.
Yeah, and I've been surprised, we've had people donating to our adventures from Japan, South Africa, Australia, and you're landing in this very small dinghy on a beach with two dog walkers on it in the middle of Scotland, and nobody's there to kind of, well done, Ken, that was a really brave day today. Nobody's there to greet you, but your message has gone around the world, and it's absolutely fantastic. And then you hear other people going, "Oh, I saw your thing. That's inspired me to do that," and that's wonderful. I've been inspired by so many other people, and it's kind of lovely to kind of pass that forward. It really is.
Fantastic. Okay, we're already at your last adventure habit, Ken. Can you believe we're here already? It's
I
number
can't.
five.
It's probably slightly relieved, but that's good. Um, so for me, yeah, number five, the right adventure.
Right.
It is. It's what is the right adventure for you? Like I say, I am a very much an ordinary person. I haven't changed from that. I'm not a full-time adventurer who does this as a job or a profession or anything like that. It's things that I've fitted into my life when I've been able to. I'm very lucky to have a very supportive wife and family. And good motivation to do those things. But equally, you can have an adventure by going, I think it's going to be a beautiful day tomorrow. I'm going to get up for sunrise and paddle my paddleboard and watch the sun come up over the sea. Just
Yeah.
anything, it doesn't have to be massive 3.5 year mega projects that nobody's ever done before. To me, the right adventure is the adventure that makes you feel like you've been challenged, you've done something you've never done before, and it gives you memories because like life is a once around trip, and I think every memory that you get is really positive, and even the hard times you learn so much about yourself. And I really feel that kind of adventuring gives you a better life and turns you into a better person. It really,
Yeah.
really does. So don't be obsessed about, I've got to do something that nobody else has done, I've got to do it faster than somebody else has done. You do something that is an adventure for you as an individual. So yeah, so that
I
would be
think
my
that's
message.
such a strong message, and the best adventurers are the ones that have done exactly that. There's something deeper wanting to be in the Guinness World Records book.
Definitely.
Okay, Ken. So your five adventure habits were number one, motivation, and make sure your motivation is coming from the right place, basically. Number two is to risk. Is in terms of risk, you want to take risk, but if you're going to take risk, which probably doubles up when you're on the water, you're going to want to manage those risks and make sure that you're prepared for a safe haven if you need one, for example. Then the next one is to prepare. So you either either you fail to plan. That means you've actually planned to fail. I like that one. I'll be using that more often in conversation. Um, and I think one of the take-home messages, I was so pleased that this came out earlier in the thing as well, is that the great thing about a solo adventure is that you involve others, and we
Definitely.
should all make an effort to do that. When we go adventuring, it it's an opportunity to bring other people along with you as well. And I kind of think in our small part, everybody else we have on here is off the scale adventure as far as I'm concerned. That image of being on a paddleboard and watching the sun go down, that's a typical kind of adventure that I've got going around my head. I think that's something I can reach out for. But even in doing that, you can inspire others and you can bring people along with you. So I think my feeling from having met you a few times is that involving others is actually a stronger point that I should be bringing out each time I talk to solo adventurers. So thanks for that, Ken. I'll be
Pleasure.
using that. And then make sure it's the right adventure. So it's not getting into the Guinness World Record books necessarily. It's not beating your neighbour necessarily. It's basically doing what you find rooted in your heart and going to the extremes to do it. And I think this it's quite poignant. We're here. This is only two days, I think, after the sad news that Nim's died in the mountains, and that's for us. He's a local boy, done good. And I'm based in Eastleigh, and he was an Eastleigh lad, well, Nepalese, but settled in Eastleigh, and so it's very sad around the town at the moment. There's a strong Nepalese contingent there, and so things are quite sad for him. Ken, good luck with your own diagnosis. I know you've got the mental fortitude to go through it. I mean, if you've done all that stuff, I mean, I don't think it's got a chance with you, mate. If I'm honest,
Well, let's
um,
hope so.
and I'm hoping that it actually springboards you to your next adventure. Will bring you back to adventure habits once that's done.
Yeah, it's definitely, I kind of, cancer doesn't change you as a person. It's just something you face. You are still that person. And again, for people who have friends and people who've got cancer, don't be scared to talk to them. People often don't know what to say, but the person hasn't changed. They are still that same core individual. It's just that they have cancer.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have a positive outcome. I'm really optimistic about it. And there are many more things waiting for me to find, discover, and kind of go and do.
Yeah, and remember, guys, that that Ken found this out by getting a PSA test. So if you're in that kind of age zone that Ken talked about, if you're in your 50s, then go and get yourself checked out as soon as you can by a doctor and ask for a PSA test. Okay,
Definitely.
uh, Ken, I think that's a very appropriate message to send people out on. Thank you so much for your time today and for all the time you've spent with us at the Armchair Adventure Festival as well. It's great knowing you, and thank you for your adventure habits.
Thank you, David, and it's been lovely, and I hope it inspires some of the people out there. Ordinary people, you can have an adventure, and you will not regret it, and it will bring you the most wonderful memories.
Great, great. Thank you, Ken. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.